This is Nate. I'm Cindy. We have two co-authors, Harrison Cole. Are you here, Harrison? He's in the back there. And he was a postdoc at the start of the project multiple years ago. And then Helen Greatrex is also one of the professors in the Department of Geography and in statistics. And there's our map. Looks like a map, right? This is where we started. So our building is 70s, is old. We have this plastic relief wall map that's been there for 40 years. It's very much loved and rubbed and falling apart. And we have brown ceramic walls and a brown floor, and it's kind of dismal. So we set out to make it better. And one of the alums, Jim McCrory, decided to donate some funds to get us started and pay for a big chunk of this in memoriam of a professor from the past, Pierce Lewis. And the University Park campus is on the Susquehannock tribal lands, and so there's a long acknowledgement of land for all of our 24 campuses, but that's the one where the Walker Building resides. So I'm going to show you a kind of quick sequence of how the wall renovation has progressed, and then we're going to focus on the floor, which was the first thing I showed you there. So this is where we started. This is approximately from my office, looking towards the main office there, the middle door. And so we pulled the map off the wall, left a big glue scar all over it, and then part of what we're doing is putting a set of backlit panels on that wall, and so the physical plant electricians put in a whole bunch of wiring and cuts in the walls to later hold that. This is a mock-up of what we're doing. We probably are not going to get all the way to describing this in detail, but it's 4 by 6.5 panels from 6 different continents in colors. But the glue scars really are profound. So we had OPP do a drywall encasing of that scarred wall. So this is the drywall mudded up. And there's our wonderful painter. And he did not want his picture taken, so I guerrilla took that picture. And there's, it's looking pretty good. This is the original floor there. And so the next step was to take the floor up. The floor has asbestos glue underneath it, so we had to close the department and have that mitigated, and the bums scarred up the wall. We had to have our wonderful painter come back. So we have a concrete floor, and then Harrison and Helen and I discovered pentagonals. Physical Plant pointed us to a company, Tarquette, and we landed on this shape, which the company Tarquette, I think, envisions this for pretty little entries and little flowers on the floor and that kind of things. But we're cartographers, right? So we went crazy. So we've had a choice of 3 different shapes. We picked shell shape because that seemed the most irregular, and then it goes together in 3 different ways, and we picked random. And here's Harrison's first map, which was just us goofing around, and it was like, this is forests and mountains and a river, and we thought, well, we can do better than that. But it was a great start because it got us inspired. So we have pentagonal, shell, random in Illustrator. We were starting to make maps.
And this is where I come in. So I was brought onto this project as working in the Geographics lab during one of our lab meetings. It was brought up, and I was super interested in it, and the opportunity arose for me to kind of get involved and take the lead on designing the floor. So we took our pentagonals in a dream, and we made the floor. I figured since it's the last session of the day, we'll give you guys the end product to look at first, and then work our way back up to how we got there. So yeah, we had 2 floors in the Walker Building that we made these abstract rasterized tile maps with, and we're going to take you through how we developed them. So just to get you oriented, because you're going to be seeing this kind of shape a lot. This is the department hallway. You can see this kind of block is our break room and kitchen. We have 2 stairwells, and then we have an elevator lobby, and the elevator lobby kind of serves as the focal point of our designs. So this also took the form of my honors thesis project for the Schreier Honors College. And this is how we're kind of tying into the putting the art into cartography session, as I looked at it through the public art impacts lens. And one of the keystone pieces of literature I reviewed for this, it kind of identified these impact categories. There was a total of 8 of them, and we isolated culture, wisdom, innovation, and economy as those that most directly were related to our renovation project. And then also in my thesis, we kind of looked at university renovation. I'm sure those of you that work as academics understand the constant and tumultuous campus landscape, renovations, and all that goes on to make things as new and improved as possible. And there's a lot of scholarship on that about the reason that renovation is undertaken, and some things that stood out to us were attracting and retaining students and faculty, and then enhancing the appearance and functionality of the campus environment. So in our specific project, we were looking to reinforce the space's connection to the Department of Geography, and couldn't think of a better way to do that than using the map, which is foundational to the discipline. So moving on to our data source, I want to thank Harrison for identifying this before I came onto the project as the initial data source for our third floor design. It is a book called Indian Paths of Pennsylvania by Paul Wallace, back from the 1960s, and it contains accounts of Native American footpaths and the hand-drawn routes throughout the state. And the way that they interact with the terrain on the landscape was something that really stood out to us, and we wanted to incorporate it into our design. So they're following rivers, creeks, ridges, the most efficient way to navigate the terrain of Pennsylvania's Ridge and Valley, which we focused in on. And interestingly enough, these paths served as the guides for a lot of the highways and roads going throughout Pennsylvania, because they were the most efficient way to navigate through the state. So after some discussion, we kind of pivoted our representation of our line segments to be movement corridors that represented multiple groups and multiple ways of traversing the state. And the Wallace paths that were hand-drawn in the book, they were digitized by the State Archaeological and Museum Commission, I believe it's called, into a cultural resources GIS. And they took the attributes from firsthand accounts of the paths, and they populated them into a GIS database, and that allowed for some more specificity in the line segments rather than just having an arbitrary drawn path. You get georeferencing, and later on in our design, we relied on the digitized versions for adding some features. So I'm going to give you a quick walkthrough of how we took this map on the left and how we translated it to overlaying it on the floor and then coming up with our map design. So you will see this combination of black and red here. This is a 1-to-1 scale outline of the Walker Building's hallways. So one of my first assignments on this project under Cindy was going up to the third floor, tape measure in hand, and measure each segment of wall so that we could model it in Illustrator as closely as possible for tile estimates and having it be as realistic as possible before we went ahead and moved on with ordering the tiles and doing the installation. So again, referencing you, we have the stairwells up here and down here, that break room I was talking about, and the elevator lobby. And we were playing with the map here and trying to get an orientation that focused on central Pennsylvania to reinforce the design's connection to Penn State and our local area and history, and also had some charismatic design features that through the segments would manifest in the final product. So lots of orientations and scales were trialed, and we landed on this as our design. And you can see it here, just calling out a few of the major waterways. We have the Susquehanna and Juniata Rivers and Pine Creek here, and you can see the movement corridors kind of traversing and following these blue linear features. And we wanted to shout out Eric Steiner, who I see in the audience, for challenging us to think a little bit more about how the movement corridors interacted with the terrain, and why did we only have water originally included? Because the ridge and valley topography of the local area was just as important to the movement corridors and how they kind of laid out throughout the state. So we decided to add a major ridge feature that has a special connection to Penn State, being Mount Nittany. It's something that is widely recognizable as a landform, and people that are in this space can really center themselves by understanding, like, oh, I'm in the elevators right now, I'm kind of in State College, and then I look out and there's Mount Nittany, which I can see on my walk to campus on any given day. So yeah, we thought that incorporating both terrain and water features really elevated this and provided some more meaning and context of place. And the final step we did here was creating 3D perspective floor models, because we'd been doing everything from the bird's eye view in Illustrator. And before we went ahead and ordered all these tiles and moved on with installation, we really wanted to make sure we were happy with the design. So we did this. It helped to kind of segment the different areas, because you could see, for example, the elevator lobbies, the stairwells, and that break room or kitchen area all at the same time previously. But putting up these walls with cardstock kind of allowed different pieces of the design to be experienced one by one and then in continuity as you move through. So once we did this, we were happy with our design, and reality set in, because we ordered the tiles and then we had to install it. Not us directly, but it needed to be installed. And what a process that was. So the tiles we were working with, as we said previously, they were in this random shape, or in this random orientation. They are pentagonal in shape, so it's not like you're laying a regular shape. And there's certain groupings of them that you need to follow for understanding the way that they're laid down in a continuous line. So going in here, you can kind of see a drawing that Jeff, our OPP installer, came up with for his way of getting a continuous line segment to make sense of our pattern, make sense of the tile pattern, and then apply the different colored tiles and install the floor. So you can see this kind of like butterfly shape here is what he landed on. But if you look at these 3 blue tiles here and the white one, it's like a little bit more of a blob, and that's what I based my entire design on. So 2 sets of eyes can view these tiles entirely different, and that presented challenges for our design installation.
And oh, okay.
Yeah.
And we're going to go past our 15. It's a right and a left, and they can go together in 3 different patterns. So when you're laying them down, the tileman's used to rectangular or square tiles, and they just line up. And so he was totally game, but it was really hard. And so this state we're at here, the tiles in our layout were a little bit bigger because they had outlines around them at full size. So the reality of the tiles were a tiny bit smaller. So he laid all this, and I said, nope, you got to move that 2 feet over, 2 feet up. He moved them all. And then I came in every night, and to these little green patches, I would correct and extend the pattern for the map. And after he got going, he was able to do that pretty well. And then we had this brassy colored trim base that worked really well, that Anthony and I were laying on the floor staring at 50 different trim bases. But the pattern doesn't go all the way down the halls. The white and the tiles I'm passing around, you'll see they have a bit of texture in them. So I drove Jeff crazy that way too, because I didn't want the texturing in the tiles to line up ever. I wanted to keep its random character. So looking down the hallway, it's much brighter, much lighter. This is the concrete base after the mitigation for asbestos. And I didn't like. I had him custom make a white tile for me. It's a good thing I didn't know we could do custom colors at the beginning, or this project would never have gotten finished. But I was unhappy. The little square one that's going around is a slightly yellower version, which was what was offered by the company. So his second floor is more of a topographic map, in essence. The green are the ridges, the dark blues are cities, and the teal is the major rivers. And so we're zoomed out a little bit. Here's a sketch to get started. Here's like Nate showed you, the hallway, and back in the background there, the green, really very much approximating major ridges. And you'll see this pattern. Take a look here at this blue here is State College. And there's looking down the hall, down the river. That's kind of cool. And then we ran out of green tiles. So I changed the scale. I made the scale smaller. No, I made the scale larger. So State College got a little bit further apart from the nearby town. Oh well. But I really would like to credit a lot of people working on this, our admin assistants, Sierra Nagoski and Mackenzie Goss, and the OPP people, and Jim McCrory's donations, a lot of people to make something like this go. I'm going to give you a very fast version of the panels. This is a 3-form light box product. Here's another look at how we've laid it out. These are from 6 continents. The resin panels, we've picked the colors there, sure. And they are lagoons in Brazil, so South America, Louisiana, the Mississippi River, and the long lots along there are the shout out to Pierce Lewis. Building footprints in Uganda, Kampala, Pennsylvania, contour lines, Bangladesh distributaries, so that's Asia, the snow cover and ice in Europe through the Alps, and Western Australia indigenous land claims, which Harrison found that data set. It's a very cool data set. So we've got the continents, a real range of physical and human topics. Here's a little table that might be too hard to read from far away, but we've got different human character, different climates, different relief. And I'm really saying to the professors in the department, no, we're not going to highlight your research. This has to, the last wall was up for 40 years. This has to last for 40 years. So, let's get a sense of global from the faculty, for the department, a sense of global, but then the floors are very much the local. So I will stop there. I don't know if I got any time for questions, but 2 questions.
How many tiles in the end? Oh, I need to.
It's like 1,500.
Yeah.
And then we ran out. The back wall in white isn't done yet because we literally ran out. Because I'll go back to just one view. You see how they're flopping up on the wall? There's so much more cutting of extras that I don't think their standard increase on, like whatever, 10% increase or whatever it was, didn't account for how many tiles would be cut to fit along a straight edge. So I think that, I don't think any of us did anything wrong with that. I think Nate and I estimated it accurately, but it's really, really complicated tile project. And the OPP guy he's really having a good time. And all his buddies that come over, they're like, wow, that looks so cool. And Jeff says, they never say that. They just say, oh, that's boring, or that part's bad, or whatever. But they don't say, wow, that's cool. So that's kind of a neat effect. Other questions? Making the 3-form panels, we learned a lot about anti-aliasing. It did not work to anti-alias, and if you want to look at them, I have an anti-aliased version and a clean, sharp-lined version of the Mississippi one. So we've been really having to work with that digital file, 4 by 6.5 foot digital file to get it so it's going to image right, which is the resin panels that are circulating there. Okay.